Hello everybody, Tex here. Today I'm going to show you how you should build your persona tree in Identity V as a hunter. This isn't going to show you like any specific persona tree recommendations like how you should build it. It's more going to be like what specific abilities and when you'd want to use them on the tree so that you can build your own. So we're going to go by there's the persona trees in 4 different quadrants. You have the north quadrant, the east quadrant, the south quadrant, the west quadrant. We're just going to go clockwise through them. So first, deteriorate. Deteriorate's actually pretty good if you have like 1 point that you just don't want anything else in. It always helps to increase healing speed. And sorry, it decreases decoding speed. My mistake. And then it also pairs really well with Panic, since they both do very similar things. The only difference is that this is for when a survivor is injured, their own decoding speed and healing speed and destroying speed is decreased by 5, while this is their teammates. So it can help if you just have a couple more points that you don't really need anything else. And then that's going to bring us up to Rage. Rage is really good when going up against a lot of small stunners. What I mean by that is, like, for example, Enchantress. She stuns you a lot of times, but doesn't stun you for very long. And in those cases, Rage is really good because it just increases your recovery speed after being stunned. And so when you're stunned a bunch of times, that's going to stack very quickly. It's generally something that you want to bring. If you're going to bring Rage, you probably want to bring all 3 stacks. If it has 3 stacks, I'm gonna tell you if you need all 3 or not. So Berserker is really good if you camp a lot. Well, I guess even if you don't camp a lot, it's pretty good. But yeah, it's one of the best traits on here that isn't an end trait. And if you can invest into it, it's almost always worth it. There's a million reasons why you'd want to bring Berserker, because it increases your attack recovery speed when someone's on a rocket chair. So for example, let's say you're playing Bloody Queen, you bring Berserker and then you just mirror into someone's Cypher and you hit them. You're gonna recover fast enough to where you can also hit whoever comes in and rescues, or you can cut off survivors who are rescuing. It's just a really, really good trait. Nostalgic. I personally like Nostalgic. It's a very it's good for if you lose survivors when you do too much. What I mean by that is, let's say you have someone coming for the rescue, you hit them before they reach the chair. They rescue, you then hit let's say the person who was rescued, but they were on last effort. So you really want to get that double down, and you want to try hitting that rescuer. They might buy a little bit of time and kite away from the person they rescued. And so if you're able to hit them again before Nostalgic runs out, it doesn't matter even if the survivor's like a million light years away, you'll still be able to see them. And so Mischievous is really, really good. Basically, it increases ballooning speed, so when a survivor is down, you pick them up much faster. This is really good against harassment, or it's also really good if you play Joseph, because they're going to be downing a lot of, because it works on Photo World survivors as well. And so then that reaches us to Wither. Wither isn't that good. All it does is that it decreases the speed boost that survivors get when they're hit if they're coming in for the rescue. And so there's just so many other things. You only bring Wither if you want one of these top 2 traits. Next is Destructiveness. Destructiveness increases your pallet breaking speed. It's really, really good. If you're bringing Destructiveness, you don't necessarily need to bring Confined Space. Destructiveness is plenty fine on its own. If you're bringing it, you're going to want to bring all 3. It's really good on hunters that get pallet spammed a lot, like your Joseph, your Hellember, your Naiads. All of those really do like having Destructiveness. And finally, there's Confined Space. It blocks windows. It's pretty simple, but Confined Space is a bit tricky. Different end traits, different hunters like different end traits, and there's a lot of reasons why you should and shouldn't bring any end trait in particular, and confined space is the one you want to probably bring the least. Um, and if you are still learning a hunter or hunting in general, you definitely don't want to bring it because it's only really good if you know how to use it and how to use a hunter's abilities properly. So, but it is still something to consider, especially if you're playing someone who doesn't necessarily need a trump card or insolence. It's really good for securing ties on specifically like Disciple. Disciple really needs confined space to, and it's good on other hunters that really don't like getting tight kited. Like I've seen geishas very rarely will use this. I see rippers sometimes bring it. Dream Witch main body also gets confined space. Night Watch is really good with confined space. And so then we're gonna come over to the eastern quadrant. So constraint is really hard to recommend. You bring it mostly if you want to bring trump card, or any of these other traits. Most of these starting traits are only just kind of good. And constraint's definitely one of those that just kind of good. It has a lot of upsides and downsides. Obviously, it decreases decoding, which is always good. The only issue with it is that if you're in like, there's just other traits that are better, and if you are in like, if you're not in upper Cyclops yet, so you can't like choose your spawns. It also tells the survivors exactly where you spawned if they don't know the if they don't have all spawns memorized. Then this tells them where you spawn because it's on the because you're gonna be on the opposite side of the map and they can tell their teammates. And so then we're gonna go ahead and go to the announcement. Announcement is okay. There's definitely worse traits out there. It's decent enough if you get Cypher Rush a lot because it tells you where everyone is. There's not really much to say about it. Wanted Order is interesting. It's a very love it or hate it trait. Some hunters really love it, some hunters really hate it. It's very luck based because like if you chase like the rescuer first and there's a decoder on the team, you chair the rescuer, you can just go after the decoder immediately, and that's where one order is really useful. One thing I will recommend is you only ever want to bring one wanted order, because if you bring one of Mock, it's cheap. It's just better to bring one of Mock because then you also get inertia, and so in the Mock, just one Mock just fucking cancels out the it cancels out the one order debuff. And so then Impact is very playstyle dependent. If you're someone who finds yourself bleeding out survivors a lot of the time, Impact is really good. Obviously, it's good on Percy. And so it's really just if you bleed out survivors a lot, bring Impact if you want to. Otherwise, you can ignore it. Next is Desperate Fight. Desperate Fight and also Addiction are both really only useful if you're going up against big stunners like your forwards, your coordinators, those guys who stun you for really long. It's and also it works well in tandem with Rage. You can bring, like, if you really just hate being harassed, bring 3 Rage, bring Addiction, bring Mischievous, and like 2 end traits, for example, Trump Card, and then you bring like an end trait. Usually, probably Detention's what you want, but that way you can just kind of guarantee the tie. And so then we're on to Hunter's Instinct. Hunter's Instinct is actually really, really good. It's probably the best of the second end traits, mostly because it helps you with your early game until you unlock your First Presence ability, which is when you're at your weakest. And so being able to buff your weakness just obviously is gonna help you a lot. It also, one other thing that I mentioned about Hunter's Instinct, if you're going up against a explorer and you have Hunter's Instinct, what you can do is that whenever there's a trait active, it'll display on the top left of your screen. And Hunter's Instinct will go away when you're facing an explorer, even if they're small and hiding. So, if you just look at Hunter's Instinct while trying to find an explorer, once it turns off, you know immediately that you're facing the explorer, and so then you'll be able to find him and hit him. Hospitable is decent enough. It's good against stunners, and if you really want it, it's there. But in general, if you're going up against, if you're getting this, you might as well get Trump Card as well. You're gonna want to bring all three of this, and you're also going to bring all three of Hunter's Instinct. So far, the ones we've talked about, the only one that you're going to bring one of is Wanted Order, and just bring one Order and then one Monk. Trump Card is really good on most hunters. It's the most jack of all trades of end traits, where there's never a time where you don't want to have it. But there are plenty of hunters in instances where you can argue that you don't need it. The way that Trump Card, what I recommend is you bring Trump Card if you want to bring Blink. Just straight up. You bring Trump Card because then that way you switch to Teleport once you're at the end game. And then you can just teleport to end gates and secure at least one more down. It's also one other way that I personally like using Trump Card as a high tier is you can also switch to Abnormal when you're near a Prime Cipher, and they never expect it, and that really does delay Cipher Rush a lot. That's a fun way that I like using it, and it's definitely if you're new or not that good at Hunter, bring Trump Card Detention on almost any Hunter. Just it's we're gonna get to Detention. We're gonna get to why it's good, but yeah, it's very versatile once you learn how to use it properly, and yeah. Next up, we're gonna get to the Southern Quadrant with Inertia. Inertia is really good, especially if you're playing a single hit hunter. So like your Night Watch, your Bloody Queen, your Ans, your Joseph, anyone who has any kind of attack recover, anyone who uses a lot of attack recovery. So basically anyone who isn't Bonbon or Sculptor or any of those hunters. Inertia is pretty good. It's just a solid increased attack recovery speed, which means you're gonna be able to get yourself your downs faster. Quenching effect is good if you just have terrible early games. I have definitely had one. When you're able to choose your spawns, the quenching effect becomes essentially useless. Because just after 50 seconds you can see everyone on the map if no one's been hit yet. And that it's useful, but it's not like game changing at that point. One other thing I will mention is if you're facing a Mind's Eye, one thing you can do is bring Teleport and Quenching Effect, and that way you can just teleport straight to the Mind's Eye and guarantee a tie. Next up is Control Freak. Control Freak is one of my personal favorites. It puts a lot of more pressure. It puts more pressure on the rescuer to come in for earlier rescues because it increases rocket chair cooldowns. Sorry, speeds up rocket chair cooldowns. And you're gonna want to bring. If you're bringing it though, you need to bring all three, just straight up. Some other ones you can argue like, oh, I only really need one impact, but yeah, bring all three Control Freak. There are so many cases where just being patient and having a max Control Freak will just give you after half rescues. It's insane. Survivors are really hard at timing before half Control Freaks when they want it right on the line. I don't know why, but that's just how they work. Next up is Giant Claw. A lot of people really love Giant Claw. I tend to not really use it that much, but I know a whole lot of people do. It increases how long you can keep a survivor ballooned. There's a lot of reasons why you'd want to bring it. It's definitely good. it's a personal preference of mine not to bring it most of the time. It's really good if you want to like push basement, or you just really want to push cheering in specific places that might be a little far. And so there are a lot of people who will bring it. Um, I just don't. And then next up is No Survivors. It's hard to recommend No Survivors. It's good, kinda. I mean, it helps when you're trying to down someone who's trying to harass you when there's a down survivor. But it's just not as good as the other ones. You kind of just want to bring this for Impulsive. Impulsive is really good on specific hunters and it's really good if you use a lot of charge attacks. And so, like your Axe Boys, your Dream Witches, your Wu Chains, those guys tend to like bringing Impulsive. Increases movement speed by 8% when using a charge attack. It's just good. And yeah, if you use a lot of charge attacks, bring it. Although, if you're playing like a Bonbon or someone who doesn't have a really good charge attack, that also includes like Violinist, then yeah, it's not that great, and I wouldn't bring it then. But otherwise, yeah, bring Impulsive. Monk, like I said, is really good at canceling out wanted order. It's also just good in general for camping, because you can it helps you intercept the rescuer before they come to the chair, so you can hit them and then meet them back at the chair before they can rescue and just hit them again. That's what Monk is really, really good for. Next up is Carnival. It's kind of bad. Like, how do I put this? The buffs and when are good, but it's like if you're bringing this, you're gonna just bring detention anyway, so it's not really worth it to talk about this, because there's very few people who will spec into just Carnival. If you're specking into Carnival, you're getting detention anyway. So I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong, it's good, but you're gonna be bringing detention if you're bringing it. So there's no, and so yeah, just don't just spec into Carnival. Bring detention if you're bringing Carnival. Detention, of course, is really, really, really good. Basically every hunter wants it. Like maybe like there are some back in the day, Bonbon didn't really need it. He kind of needs it now. It's really good at securing ties, and it's just a really good safety net because it just gives you free, like, full damage when the last cipher is popped. So obviously you can't rely on detention for wins, but it's really good if you just to get that last kill you need for a draw. Deer Hunt, I personally like Deer Hunt. It's not necessarily the best, but it is the best of the starting ones in my opinion. Other than maybe you can argue Deteriorate, but yeah, it's just good, especially if you're playing specific hunters where if you tend to lose people even after you down them. Like, let's say you down someone and then you go and down the harasser, and it's like, oh, where's the first guy I downed? Deer Hunt helps with that. Not everyone likes it, and that's okay. I like it. It's good, but it's not necessary 100%. Exhibitionist is just kind of okay. I mean, if you miss a lot of attacks, then I guess it's fine, but you shouldn't be missing attacks. Being rewarded for whiffing an attack, it's just not gonna teach you good, like, good habits. You shouldn't be missing your attacks. Like, obviously it happens, and when it does, it's useful. And even the best hunters miss. But, like, just why? Why would you bring this? Well, why would you bring a trait specifically that only helps you when you fuck up? Yeah, no. But, the only time you bring it is if you want to bring Hunt. And Hunt is good. It's really, really good on specific hunters that like it. If you use a lot of abilities all the time, like your bonbons, your axe boys, your bloody queens, your ants, those kinds of hunters, those tend to hate hunt. But if you're playing a hunter that doesn't tend to use a lot of abilities, especially like Dreamwitch, Joseph, Jack, those guys all fucking love hunt. It's so good on them. It you just have to be careful on trying to manage it so that it continues. You want to avoid pallets and windows, which can be risky. But if you get used to it, hunt is really good on those hunters. Street Sweeper, it's good on Joseph, I guess, because it helps you find people who are being healed, but it's not 100% necessary. One thing I will mention about No Survivors that I forgot to earlier is that's really good on Joseph, because you can see the ability activate on the top left, which tells you there's a knockdown survivor nearby. And so yeah, some Josephs will bring that to help them find the survivor after they chair in the photo world. And so yeah, I don't think Street Sweeper's that great, but I mean, I guess if you like it, then good for you, I guess. Now this Control Freak is not like this Control Freak. It's not as good. It increases movement speed after you fall from a certain height, and I guess I guess on some maps it can be occasionally useful. But like if you're playing Church, where the only place where you can use this is basement, then it's completely useless and you just don't need it. And then we get to claustrophobia. Claustrophobia is very controversial. It's it's another one where it really only helps if you fucked up your game. Kind of like Exhibitionist, where like if you fucked up your game, you should have just played better rather than relying on claustrophobia. But it is better. It is significantly better than Exhibitionist. Mainly because you are gonna have games where you just get kited for like 20 ciphers. And in those cases, if you're playing like a Bloody Queen or an Anne with teleport, you can bring it as just a sort of like safety blanket, just so you can guarantee your tie as long as you don't fuck up. Which in those cases, claustrophobia is 100% nice. It's not necessary, but it is nice, especially if you're still learning a character and you're just not good at using their abilities. Next up is Tolerance. I've used Tolerance before when using Insolence. I never notice it. I mean, it's fine, I guess. It just is not really something that you want to spec into for its own ability. It's something that you spec into for later abilities. After Effects is is very dependent on who you're playing and how you're playing them. It's useless on Percy, but if you're playing like a Breaking Wheel or another hunter where you just like bleeding out survivors a lot, like Clown as well, then After Effects is really good. And that's all I really have to say about it. I mean, it's useful in those instances, but there's not a lot of hunters that do that. But if you're of the playstyle where you love bleeding out survivors, After Effects is something to consider. And finally, we reach the last trait, Insolence. Insolence is really good for securing ties. There's a lot of hunters that could like it. For example, Breaking Wheel likes it. Naiads in Tournament will bring it to try securing ties. Insolence Detention Dreamwitch is decent for trying to secure ties. It's just presence is how you snowball in this game, and so getting more presence is always a good thing. It's also good. So it's another thing though, where if you're not good at Hunter, it's not exactly the best, because it's helping you when you're worse at the game, but but it is better than the other two that do that as well. I like Insolence, so it's yeah, I'd recommend it on hunters that really need help in their early game. Uh, some hunters though, it's completely useless, like Bloody Queen and those kinds of hunters really don't need Insolence. I mean, I guess I've seen a tournament Bloody Queen try bringing Insolence when they only need one down. And I guess in that case, yeah, Insolence is pretty decent. But in rank, it's not necessary on those kinds of hunters. It's a lot more useful though on those kinds of hunters you where it's really where presence is their entire thing. So yeah, those are all of the persona traits, and if I'd recommend them or not. Thank you all for watching, and yeah, I hope y'all come up with your own builds, because I'll be honest with you, I don't like going to like the top 10 of a character and just choosing a build there, and because when you know the abilities and what you're specking into, those that will help you so much with your playstyle and finding what's going to be right for you, because different hunters have different preferences, different playstyles, all of that. So yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed and enjoy your hunter games. Bye y'all.